Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well today. Well, it is Saturday, and all of you who have participated or joined me in the Saturday Nightmare live from New York will know that at midnight there will be another one, and I am looking forward to it. Anyway, today I've got some very horrifying encounters, as well as a very creepy video clip. Before we get into it, a couple links. As you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon and PayPal are in the description below. The merch is displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman, Frightening Encounters Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They all were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, the links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support this channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It doesn't cost a cent. Click that like button. It takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads I put out daily, click that bell icon and please leave a comment. Why? Well, because all of these things, they really do help this channel to continue to grow and go. And folks, they definitely matter. Now, everyone, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's get on with today's upload, shall we? Tonight's first encounter. I'm a hunter, and I like to hunt wild boar specifically, though I've hunted deer before, and I have been known to get a turkey for Thanksgiving. I mostly hunt boar. For those of you who do not know, boar are a big problem in the U.S. A sow can have 2 litters a year, and it's not uncommon for a litter to consist of 10 or more pigs. Given that pigs eat anything and everything, it's not hard to see why the Department of Fish and Wildlife makes it legal to hunt them with almost no restrictions. In my state, it's illegal to hunt most large mammals with night or thermal vision scope, with the exception of boar and coyote. I had been saving for a year, mostly fun money. It's hard to explain to your wife that a scope that costs literally twice as much as the rifle I was mounting it on was worth. But I did it, and I took it to the range to sight it in. There was an area that had been peppered with boar activity that I knew would be perfect for a night hunt. It was easily accessible with my truck, with easy-to-find spots that I could set up in that had an overlooked a large, easy-to-navigate clearing. The night started uneventful, mostly me tinkering with my new toy, cycling through the settings. I was a little impatient. I had spotted multiple deer, but they were out of season, and like I mentioned earlier, my current setup wasn't legal for deer. I moved to another spot I had seen days earlier that probably wasn't much better than my first, but it gave me something to do, and with a new angle to look around with my new scope. After an hour or so of glassing the area, it dawned on me, hey, this spot doesn't have much animal activity at all. No rabbit, owl. The deer I had seen earlier were 100 yards from where I was. Why was this pocket of land so dead at night, but lively in the day? I'd set up at around 10 p.m., and it was about 2 in the morning when I started to think about packing up, maybe setting up a target before I left and taking some practice shots. I heard a crunch come from the direction I had come from before. I panned my scope over, and I saw a silhouette of a small bear pushing through the brush. It's important to note that my scope isn't exactly night vision. It's a thermal scope, kind of like a black and white version of what you see in the Predator movies. I adjusted my range and zoomed in a little. I remember jolting a little when I saw that it was not really a bear, it was a man. Because he was so low and hunched over, I thought I was looking at a young bear. Is it the game warden? It couldn't be. I would have seen headlights coming up the road from where I was perched. And where would he have walked from? I was 30 miles away from anything and on public land. I was about to call out when I adjusted my sights and noticed that he was naked. No shoes, pants, or anything. I remember being disturbed by his movements, like a squirrel or something, twitchy and grabbing at the foliage, sniffing around and palming the tree. Was that my tree? The one I had been leaning on against earlier. The thought terrified me. Could he have smelled me? Then he did something I still have nightmares about today. He squatted down and placed his hands in the dirt between his feet and stared straight up like a dog mid-howl. And I heard it, a voice coming from that direction, a very compelling female voice. "Help, I'm lost." There was a long pause, but neither of us moved a muscle. The center of my sights was trained on the dirt in front of his feet. I couldn't bring myself to aim directly at another person. It went against everything I had been taught about firearms. Were they lost? Was this some guy that had gone crazy out here? Why was his voice so feminine? "Help, please, I can't walk," the voice called out again. That's when I called BS. Not only could he walk, when I first saw him, he was traversing the land with ease for a naked person. So good I mistook him for a bear. This is a trap. This guy is trying to lure me to him with the damsel in distress routine. Luckily, the lack of activity before had caused me to pack up most of my gear. I think I may have left behind a hat and a sitting pad, but I didn't give a crap at that moment. I took my eyes off him for a brief moment to get my pack on, buckled my chest strap, and scrambled for my rifle. To my horror, he was in the same position, but his face was staring in my direction, and I swear I saw a smile. The thermal scope has an effect that makes animal eyes appear white. How the hell had he heard me get up and put my gear on? He must have easily been 150 yards away. "Piss off," I screamed in that direction. He stood upright, and it hit me how tall and skinny he was, easily over 6 feet, and very lean. He took a couple of long strides in my direction, and I instinctively sent a round sailing above his head into the tree line. He was freaky as hell, but he hadn't really threatened me. What'd I tell the cops? I was unwilling and unready to shoot someone. He stopped dead in his tracks and hunched down on all fours again. "The next one will mess you up. Go away." He stayed on all fours, and this time I had my sights trained dead center on him. His eyes were just above the grass like a large cat or something. I was trying to stop my trembling and knew that my voice had cracked a little on that last warning. I was terrified. That standoff probably lasted only a minute or two, maybe less, but it felt like forever. In an instant, he bolted left toward the tree line opposite the road, so much for not being able to walk. I could barely keep him in my scope, he was moving so fast. He disappeared into the brush, and I sent another round sailing high in his direction, racked another round and tried to pocket that mag and swap for a fresh one, but I dropped it and didn't bother looking for it. I wasn't far from my truck, and I just wanted to get out of there. I could hear him in the distance, yelling in this weird sound that could have been a laugh or a cry. I scrambled up the trail and arrived to my truck breathless, tossed my gear into the cab, but kept my rifle in the passenger seat and sped off. For the longest time, I told this experience from the perspective of spotting some deranged crackhead living off the land, some kind of caveman. I reported it to Fish and Game, but all they did was scold me for hunting at night alone. Never received an update. It wasn't until I told this experience on a camping trip that my nephew told me about crawlers and such. My story scared the crap out of him because the spot we were camping at is technically the same forest that I seen this thing at, just 50 miles east. He was so spooked his mom, my cousin, had to take him home. She was really upset. I've gone down a rabbit hole with these spooky encounters. I'm not saying what I saw definitely was a crawler or what. I'm saying that if such a thing exists, I may have dodged the bullet that night. Tonight's second encounter. This happened in 2007. I don't remember the exact date. I was an international student from Indonesia studying interior design at the Art Institute, which is located on Wilshire Boulevard in LA. It's now in North Hollywood. College life was stressful for me. I had a hard time catching up on the workload of assignments. I missed many deadlines for my assignments. I felt so stressed, and I didn't go to class if I didn't have anything good to present during the class. While I was studying, I lived in a newly built 2-story townhouse in Arcadia, near the Santa Anita shopping mall and a famous horse racing track. My older sister used to live in the same house, but in early January of 2007, she moved back to our country after finishing her studies, so I was alone. When I was young, like 5 years old, I had nightmares, and I was able to see bad things in and around our home. Almost every night I woke my parents and siblings up with my screams. Thank goodness the nightmares stopped when I was about 12. The scariest thing I saw was a pair of glowing red eyes attached to a large, black, ape-like body. It was above me while I was lying in bed sleeping. The red eyes were less than a foot distance from my face. I felt so terrified and paralyzed. I let out a faint shriek when I woke up and saw that that thing was staring at me. I pulled up my blanket and covered my face while the thing was still staring. Later, I learned that Indonesian people call it the Genderuwo. Now back to topic. Late one afternoon or early evening, after staying inside my bedroom all day watching TV and basically doing nothing productive, I wanted to go to the kitchen downstairs and make some dinner. When I opened my bedroom door, immediately I saw a translucent humanoid sitting on the floor with her legs crossed and facing the opposite direction to my bedroom's door. When it noticed me, it started to get up from the floor and turn its body to face me. It was rather skinny with long arms and clearly defined outline, just like the cloaking alien in the Predator movie, only smoother. About maybe 5 feet tall. I remember instantly feeling a very negative, malicious feeling from that thing. I then quickly closed the door and locked it. I was thinking of hiding under the bed, but I didn't have enough space underneath it. So I decided just to wait inside my bedroom until the following day around noon. I thought it was an evil spirit, and I wished the full sunlight would make it disappear. The next day it was gone, and I never saw such a thing again, thank goodness. The recent movie titled The Invisible Man of 2020 reminded me of my encounter with that thing. I did some research about it online and found out that it may have come from the forest or a sparsely human-populated place. Some say it's a cloaking Bigfoot, but I think it's something different. A Bigfoot would have a thick, tall physique, wouldn't it? This thing was 5 feet tall and slender. And based what I saw in the outline, I believe it had short hair. The house I used to live in is in Arcadia, which is also very close to Angeles National Forest. So maybe it came down from the forest area. Tonight's third part of the upload is a very similar experience in the same area. Literally in the same area. Only 7 years later. So it got me thinking, whoa, maybe this has something to do with the previous encounter. Check it out. These weird events happened to me in early 2014 in Tujunga, a small town on the edge of Angeles National Forest outside of LA, California. Actually, this is just the first of a series of events that occurred during my stay in this wonderful but dark little town, whose longtime residents called its weird energy the Veil and claim it helps keep the property developers away. So I ride horses, and I have a dressage horse who needs a lot of attention. At the time I was keeping him at a wonderful little barn in the Angeles National Forest near my apartment in town. For context, I'm 5'9", athletic beef castle of a girl. I ride rank horses, I can take a punch, and even though I'm politically very progressive, I have a sort of red state vibe. I'm originally from Kentucky, love guns. I drove an old Dodge 2500 and have generally sauntered through life, feeling stupidly unafraid of most things and generally overestimating my own abilities. Like the quintessential American dumbass, I'm one of those people who is sure they would have won Fear Factor with no problem. I was often the last person to leave the barn late at night, and would turn off all the lights, making the place pitch black. Darkness has never bothered me, and I sometimes hiked alone at night on the fire roads. For several months, this awful woman of a horse trainer kept this beautiful horse named Irish penned up in a miserable box stall at the back of the property, in constant pain due to a serious illness called lamentitis. It broke my heart. I spent about an hour every night with him, holding his massive head and assuring him things would be better soon. He was truly a sublimely wise and kind being. It was as if he wanted to comfort me because I was so sad for him. God, thinking about him now has my eyes burning. That situation really hurt me deeply. I and many others confronted the woman about putting him down, but she refused, and animal control is useless. It was affront to everything that is good and decent in the universe to keep this horse in pain and isolated. And if I ever get a terminal illness, maybe I'll track this woman down and gut her. Anyway, one night I came out to care for my horse, and Irish's stall was empty. He had finally been put to sleep. Thank God I was relieved. A weight had been lifted from my shoulders, and I imagined him in the next world, restored to youth and tall grass. I worked with my horse, grooming him, feeding him, and putting to bed. As usual, last person there. It was 9:30 p.m. I walked down the little road that ran between the horse corrals and turned off all the perimeter lights. The farm became impenetrably black as usual, only not as usual this time. Every fiber of my being was alive with adrenaline. Something is here with me. Frozen, listening, the horses making their usual sounds, shuffling in their wood chip bedding, obscuring any sounds this thing could be making. I slowly reached inside my sports bra for my thin switchblade I kept under my boob. Something is here, something's behind me. In the back area by Irish's old stall. Mountain lion? Unlikely, the horses would be flipping out by the smell. It must be a meth head from the river wash hiding out, planning to do whatever to me once the lights are out. No, it doesn't feel like that. But it must be that, right? It has to be. So I say, "What's up, MFer? You want to bang heads? You want to get perforated tonight? Let's go." Nothing. I don't think it was a human. Panicked inside, I try to move stealthily down the little road, sticking tight to the rows of sheds, staying off the road itself. I had a new F-150 at the time, and as I got close, I got my keys out. I hit the remote and lit up with all the lights, and I just ran for it. I ran like hell, like something was after me, and it was life or death. I jumped in, locked it, and fishtailed out of there. For some reason, I didn't want to go home. I turned on the radio and drove around the neighborhood. Caught my breath and somehow managed to convince myself, "Hey, you're a dumb girl who's probably about to get her period and let her imagination run wild on her." I finally park and go upstairs to my apartment. My roommate was already asleep with her door closed. I brushed my teeth and fell asleep with my sweet old cat at some point in the middle of the night. My ancient rescue cat wakes up and starts growling this really boss bitch growl, like "get out of my room," focused on the door of the bedroom. I fall back to sleep. I had a series of terrible dreams that kept waking me up, but the only one I remember was this little troll-like spirit had moved into the apartment with us. He was 3 feet tall. He was invisible, but had an outline kind of like the Predator, so you could perceive his form. He had short, little stubby legs, hobbit-like big feet. He was portly, and he had big, ugly, pointed ears that went past his top of his head. His arms were skinny, and he had claw-like hands. That was his shape, and he was a very nasty little spirit. The next morning, on the drive into the office, I called my roommate. Not wanting to prompt her, I simply asked, "Hey girl, how'd you sleep?" And she said, "I had the worst dreams. It was like this little midget guy moved into our apartment, sort of like a ghost or something, and we couldn't get rid of him. It was awful." I nearly rear-ended the car in front of me when she said that. I told her everything that had happened the night before, and she was pretty stunned. I said, hey, I'm going to call my friend Will, who has been studying Eastern and Native American medicine, and see what he says. Will explained that some Eastern traditions believe that any soul who dies in pain is reincarnated as a negative energy who carries the rage and injustice of its situation onto the next. So, if you carry that to its logical conclusion, Irish, the beautiful being who passed away, had been transmuted into this ghastly little monster that attached itself to me, following me back to my apartment. Great. And let's just unpack this whole thing for a moment. So, a kindly soul is tortured for months until it dies, and instead of receiving merciful healing, he is turned into a shitty demon who tries to be my third roommate. Yeah, great system. Will suggested that my roommate and I do a standard burning of sage. No idea why that's always the go-to moving in hauntings, but we did it. We were both super uneasy in the flat, and the cats were edgy. He gave us instructions to do meditation that night before bed. It involves imagining that your body is filled with pure white light. Then you fill your aura around you with that light. Then you fill the room with that light. Then the town, and then the state of California, and then the earth, and finally you fill the entire known cosmos with this white light. And it pushes the negative energy outside of our realm, and we wish them a smooth transition to safe and healing place where their karma can be cleansed so they can have peace. It sounds like woo-woo crap, but honestly, it was sort of comforting. Next day, all seemed well. Cats went back to barely being awake, and neither of us had bad dreams. What bothers me most about this isn't the little dude that moved into the house, or the fact that it challenged my whole notion of objective reality and the existence of spirits or whatever. It's the idea that there is no justice in the cosmos. It's all just run by a bunch of casual, cruel jerks who would do that to a sweet old horse. It's really just unsettling as everything. I'm an atheist Jew, but this has made me realize that deep down I believe in, or took for granted, that there is some sort of fundamental goodness at work, or in the universe. Nope, I think again, it's all just one ice-cold crap hole, and no matter how good you are in this world, you'll probably get screwed in the next. So that's the real swell. That's the real horror of this story. And it does haunt me. Everyone you've ever loved, your grandparents, your mom, your first pet, who knows what ghastly abomination they have turned into today. So, I don't know if these two experiences were related. 7 years apart, the people don't know each other. They live in this, or lived in the same area, same vicinity, explaining something very similar. To me, it could be related. I don't know. I don't know if it has anything to do with the horse. That's just what their opinion and theory was. It could be something that did come from Angeles National Forest. To me, that sounds more probable and definitely scarier. Anyway, tonight's fourth part of the upload is going to be some video footage of this creepy crawler creature in Moorhead, Kentucky. Some security cam footage. It is very creepy how it moves. You can see its face, and I'm almost off the fence on this one, on the side of it being real. So you guys give it a look-see and form your own idea. Like I said, guys, it's out of Moorhead, Kentucky. You guys can make your minds up on what you think of it. And here's tonight's final encounter. When I was about 22 and working for a small security company of only 18 people at the time, we worked at an area tourism location called Seven Falls in southwest Colorado Springs in the Cheyenne Mountain Canyon area. I remember the shifts being grueling, due mostly to the fact that we were mostly in direct sunlight during the afternoon and evening, and the average shift we were expected to walk a minimum of 7 miles between the base of the parking area to the top of the falls, and rarely were allowed to use the guest elevator for handicapped and elderly. The whole park was on a hilly incline, so walking to the top down was okay. Bottom up is what exhausted us. In the evening near the base of the falls, native Ute or Cheyenne tribal dancers would perform, and we would monitor the crowds, which were slight breaks for about 15 to 20 minutes. These falls were frequented by area tribes for hundreds of years and were still considered spiritual. So it was the native tribes that pushed for the performances, since Seven Falls is considered a state park. At the end of the night, we would sit at the main entrance into the falls at the bottom of the canyon off the lower Gold Camp Road and monitor the toll booth until roughly 1 in the morning, except during weekends and holidays. Then we were out there till 3 in the morning. On several occasions, we waited for the end of my shift, and I always had occurrences that made me feel like I was going to be attacked, either by an animal or a person. Guttural hissing, deep, mannish groans, harassing growls could always be heard from behind the giant gate. Glowing eyes, either red or white in color, but larger than any area wildlife, could be seen from behind brush and tree canopies. But what stuck with me is the shimmering humanoid shape. The shimmering was otherworldly. The way it always described it to my family and friends was that of like the Predator. My first work firearm was an older Smith & Wesson semi-automatic single-stack pistol. That was my dad's when he worked for the Foundation Police Department. But this was the first time I felt I was defenseless while working. I watched this shimmering silhouette crawl on the asphalt over to the toll booth, to what then appeared to be stood upright and extended a long waving arm. This looked like a being phasing between the physical and incorporeal realm. As I shifted my weight to look closer, as I was awestruck, the glowing reddish eyes slowly came back in focus. Then, in a snap, I heard what sounded like an animal climbing up the side of the toll booth gutter, and watched as the shimmering jumped to the tree no less than 20 feet away. From here, the shimmering jumped again. This time, a broken branch fell from the tree. A loud crash sound rang on the top center of the gate as the shimmering looked back one last time before going over the gate and disappearing into the Seven Falls Park. Bringing us to May of 2022. My old coworker and I ran into each other while at Walmart, and we decided to go to the Gunther Tootie's Diner next door. While having a burger and reminiscing about the good old days, he brings up, "Did you ever see the Predator in his active camouflage at Seven Falls?" My blood ran cold, and I dropped a shade to just about pale. He then proceeded to tell me about his experiences on his shift that I had never heard. After leaving the diner and arriving home, I sat in the driveway for a moment, contemplating what inhabits Lower Gold Camp Road. All right, folks, I hope you enjoyed today's upload as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. It's a pretty horrifying video clip, and I'm really not sure what that is. I don't know how I feel about that one, to be honest with you. Anyway, with that, guys, thank you for supporting this channel, because without your support, this channel would be absolutely nothing. You are the foundation of this platform. Please, everyone, stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant. We are in the midst of summer, in the middle of it. People are camping, canoeing, hiking, whatnot. Keep an eye on your children, your pets, your loved ones, yourself as well. Ever vigilant. Keep an extra set of eyes behind your back. Every time I go up to where Tom Mesick disappeared, it just seems to get worse and worse for me up there. More strange. God bless you all.